I'm honored to say that I met Glenna in 1993, and it was at dinner with William Stafford. And it was shortly after that dinner that Glenna approached her longtime friend, David Oliveira, who was also a friend of mine, but we knew each other from different camps. And David called me up and he said, Glenna would like to start a new sort of translation of her publishing empire. So that's how Solo was born. And then when I was asked to do a history of it, I misremembered the date of the dinner with William Stafford. And I think I put it in 1995. There's only one person that caught that, and it was Paul Willis, who emailed me. He said, "This is fascinating." He said, "Stafford had already been dead for 2 years." But I wanted to read just a little bit. This is one of the wonderful little books, Brazilian Poems by Hugh Fox, translated by Glenna Luchei, finalmente. And my Portuguese is bad, my English is pretty good. And I just wanted to read you just about 6 short lines of this. It's The Beautiful Game, and this is a poem by Glenna for Hugh Fox, the gentleman who wrote these poems. Most of all, I wanted to remind you of the taxi driver in Paris who threw us out suitcases and all on the anniversary of Normandy because we forgot the address of our hotel. But since I'm in Brazil, and the taxi driver nearly kisses my hand for tipping him 2 reais for the safe trip back from the botanical garden, I have to face it. I am a child of the new world. Glenna Luchei. Okay. Per executive request, a lover of this country where, when slavery was abolished by an act of Congress, the people threw roses into the assembly. The American ambassadors gathered them up. He said, "For this, my country had to fight a war." Okay. And thank you. And I'm Glenna and David and I and Ron Alexander sort of opened the topic of the AIDS epidemic. And this collection, all three of us, our lives were affected by that epidemic. David and I both being gay men. And Glenna had a daughter who was an incredible activist for the rights of women who were also HIV positive. And now, many years into the advance, the early models of the progress of the disease were all men. So women were dying of other kinds of infections, but they weren't diagnosed with AIDS. And without the diagnosis of AIDS, you had no access to any of the trials of experimental medicine. So that was Linda Luchei's great contribution, was to advocate fiercely for the right of women to have diagnoses based on other criteria that were appropriate to women's bodies and anatomy. This is a poem that Glenna published in Café Solo. I can't remember. I think it was the issue with Joseph Gallo on it. I mean, my office is in such disarray, and I was running around trying to find things. I was looking for the copy that Chris Yost held up of Solo 6. And I know that I had, Glenna had requested a poem, and I had sent some poems. And then this poem had already been published, so we had to get permission to reprint it. It's for my brother. It's entitled Swimming Past Iceland. This was the first poem of mine that Glenna published. I have been told that people with pneumonia drown, so I imagine him swimming away. I buy freesias for his room, bring a perfect nest blown from the olive tree. Does it belong to a shrike or Phoebe? My brother does not answer. He is swimming, they tell me, somewhere near the horizon, nearly out of sight. I spend the afternoon cooking lentils, baking bread. Perhaps he will swim back for dinner, wet and hungry. I smooth his sheets, read, imagine him out in the dark. I am afraid to wade after him. Is he cold, I wonder? I put my ear to his lips. Breath rasps in time with his strokes. As a child, he threatened to swim to England. In last night's fevered dream, he cleared the coast of Labrador, Greenland by dawn. He awakes smiling. Ice, he says. I put ice to his lips. He is hot and cold, like Iceland in the children's book about volcanoes. He paces himself, almost there. Home, he says, off the coast of Iceland. He is exhausted. Even in my dream, waist deep in the icy cold, he has made Iceland, passed it, too exhausted for England, too tired to return. He is drowning out there, spent swimmer, off some distant coast, after all the stragglers and generations caught sleeping in hospitals next to the bed of someone with pneumonia, drowning, dying, dreaming, someone who swims from one fevered place to another, but never home. Glenna.